I have taken inspiration from the front cover of the new catalog. I have one copy, ladies, so your copies, I've got all the envelopes addressed, but I don't have them to send out yet. But I really liked this card. Now what they've done here is use strips of paper. I'm going to show you a little different technique, but you can of course do both or experiment, play. It's kind of fun. Actually, one of the best things about crafting, I think, is taking like one concept or one layout or one sketch or one color combo and just playing and playing and playing with it and making up a bunch of different variations. So now, normally I do not use grid paper on my videos because I think it's a little bit busy and distracting, but in this case, for this project, what we're going to do, you do need to have grid paper. So what we're going to do is I've got a piece of white here, and this is, I always have to think, and it's the same measurements every time. It's 3 3/4 by 5.5 inches. And I'm going to take some post-it notes. Now I have particularly long post-it notes, but if you have the standard size, you could just use a couple of them. So that's no problem. So why we want to use the grid paper is we want to make sure the post-it notes are on straight. So you want to line up your paper on the grid paper, and then I'm going to count down the squares. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm going to go 6 squares down and just put my post-it note across the top there. It's quite nice to have it a bit long because then it's holding the paper in place as well. And then I'm going to do the same here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You could make them uneven though, so you have like 5 and 7 or whatever. That might actually be not give me a whole lot of room, but that's okay. It's going to be a little different than the other cards I've done, and that's totally fine. Okay, so we're going to do our inking on this section here. So you just are exposing the part that we're going to put ink on. So I'm going to count down. I'm going to do 3 squares, but of course, if you do this yourself, you can do it 2 or 5 or whatever you want. And I'm going to then sponge on Rococo Rose for our first color. You know, I did not show you the finished one. Let me do that. So, sorry, I've taken the inspiration from that front cover. So instead of using strips of paper, I'm going to use stripes of ink. So this is a way that you can recreate that sort of look, but you don't necessarily have to have all the cardstock. You can just use your ink. Or you could even use a mixture of ink and cardstock. So you can just really be quite creative with that. So I'll put this here so you can kind of see it as we go along. So I'm going to start with the Rococo Rose. Now this is kind of a dark color, so I suggest if you have like a darker color, you just sort of tap it off first. And then I'm just going to sponge across. Now I'm going to start on the right hand side each time, and then go a little lighter pressure as I go towards the left, because I want it to be dark to light. You can do it all kind of the same intensity if you want. And don't worry if it doesn't look like totally smooth and perfect like mine doesn't. Just, it's going to be fine once we get everything on there. Okay, now I have found that if I turn this over and cover that up and do the next section immediately, the post-it note doesn't stick really well because that ink is actually still just a little bit wet. So what I'm going to do is come down here to the bottom and do a little strip across the bottom and then come back to that, like go from top, bottom, okay? And I'm going to use soft seafoam, which is a really light green, and I've only done it up 1 square this time. So I've actually given myself kind of a small section to ink, smaller than the sample, which is fine. Okay, set that aside. Okay, now we'll go back up to the Rococo Rose. And you want to just place that so it's just covering the ink. And then I need another post-it note. And then let's do a I'm just looking at how many squares I have left. Let's do a 2 square strip of the So Saffron will be our next color. This one might be losing its stick. Okay, and peel that off, and then let's see, then we need to cover this piece, and then let's come up 3, and we'll do a bigger section of my favorite color ever is Seaside Spray, like ever. I love this color. Okay, and ink that on. And again, I'm going to go a little heavier on the right-hand side. Okay, then our very last section, that last little strip, now that one's not going to stick well because I just did that one. I'll just do another little stripe of the soft sea foam. Make sure I have the right ink pad or sponge. Okay, let's close a few of these up. All right, so, oops, we need to leave that top and bottom one on, so I'm just exposing that section still. Now I'm going to use as I mentioned before, the Positive Thoughts stamp set. You can do this technique or this card with any stamp set that has more solid images. I think it looks good to have images that are not 100% solid, but the sample on the front cover are 100% solid, so kind of anything that you like. It's what you like. Now I'm going to use, this is Rich Razzleberry. And I'm going to grab the leaf image and stamp that with these 2 top and bottom masks still on. I'm just looking for the butterfly. We'll stamp that one on. Maybe stamp another little partial one down here. Then stamp some more of our leaves on. Like so. I think I'm going to leave it. I need that again. Okay, now then before we take those masks off, I'm going to do one more thing to this. I've made up a shimmer spray. So the shimmer spray is our spritzers, which have a very, very fine atomizer, I think they're called. It is 70% alcohol, 30% water, or you can get a mixture that's just 70% alcohol straight out of the bottle. And then some drops of our shimmer paint. So we have shimmer paint in champagne color, which is like a nude, like a light, very light brown color. And there's white. So this happens to be champagne in there. You could use either one. So you would shake that up and then just spritz that all over your stamped image so you've got like a nice shimmer on it. And I know you probably can't see that exactly on the video. And it's actually really hard to capture in photographs, but you can kind of see it on that finished one there. Now while that is, I'm just going to give it a minute to dry. I've got a mat to go underneath this. Now I stamped in Rich Razzleberry, but the mat I'm choosing to use Blackberry Bliss. They're like mother-daughter colors. This is the really dark version of Rich Razzleberry. However, I found if I stamped in Blackberry Bliss, it actually looked almost like black. So I thought I'll just use the paper in that color and then the more purpley one for the stamping. So what you want to do then is find a die or just simply cut or punch a shape to fit whatever words you want to use. So I would suggest, I think everyone should have these stitched rectangles. I think they're really great for words. The one that actually fit these words that I wanted to use is from the new Ornate Frames stamp set. So it does have one long, thin stitched rectangle in there, and that fits. I'm reading and talking at the same time. It fits those words very well. So what I'm going to do is cut my frame right out of the middle of that mat. So it's just one less piece of paper you've got to find. So let me just, and now if I just want to show you that front cover again, that front cover, they've just stamped the words, whatever words they're using, same color on the same color of paper, or maybe even a slightly darker ink on a similar colored paper, which that looks good too. However, this color that I picked was so dark, I don't know that that would actually work very well. So I'm going to white emboss it. So use your emboss buddy. Now, while I'm doing this, I'm just going to point out that the emboss buddy is on the discontinuing list. I feel like it's an essential tool. So unless there's something else that's coming in the future, because there's nothing in this book that's coming in June, I would suggest you get one if you don't have one, or maybe get a backup one. Okay, so I've just put the Versamark and the white powder, and I'm just going to heat that. And don't be scared to get too close to, or not too close, get close to your paper. Oh, people are worried about burning it, and I'm sure it probably happens, but I personally, in all my years, have never seen anyone burn their paper or start anything on fire. I have heard of someone starting their carpet on fire, so do not heat emboss over top of carpet. Okay, so then I'm just taking a little bit of that rich raspberry ink and going around the edge. This is totally optional. It just makes that edge just a little bit darker. So we're not really antiquing it or distressing it anyway. We're just adding a little bit of depth to that piece. Okay, now I think this is ready. So we're going to pull these off. And we've got that little cute scene, I guess. That's not quite the right word, but you know what I mean. Cute print on our paper. I'm going to get rid of that grid paper. So now we can go ahead and mat that onto our Blackberry Bliss piece. And I'm putting the glue on this piece, which I don't normally do. I would normally put it on this smaller piece, but I don't really want glue through there, so I'm just doing it like this for this particular project. And then I've got a Whisper White card base. Now, the Whisper White comes in two weights. You've got the thick Whisper White and you have like the standard Whisper White. The thick Whisper White is great for your card bases. The standard Whisper White is great for your stamping and layers. It's great for scrapbooking because generally scrapbookers don't want their pages too terribly thick in their albums. But for the card maker, I would think you would want to have the thick white and the standard white in your collection. One for stamping and one for card bases. Okay, then now we want to put the twine on. So in this sample on the front of the catalog, I'm looking for my twine, there it is. They've used a gold metallic thread, which we don't have yet. And I don't have it yet either. So I'm just going to wrap some twine around my like 4 fingers 3 times into a loop here. And then I'm just going to adhere that down onto my project. Now you can have this down really nice and tidy, or you can let it sort of do whatever it wants to do. I think this one I might not have a choice. Might just have to let it do what it wants to do. And get it kind of in a circular shape. It might not be a perfect circle, and that's okay. Now then, this word piece, we'll put that up on dimensionals 2. I'm using my black dimensionals for this. Now these words are an opportunity to cover up any mistakes or any like ink where you didn't want it to end up, or something that was uneven or whatever. And you could put it right in the middle, centered. I like it kind of offset like that. It's going to hang off the card just a tiny bit, but it still fits in the envelope, and that's really all that matters, is just if it fits in the envelope or not. Then I'm going to just do the inside real quick before I finish up the front. So I like to have another little piece of our colored paper, and another piece of Whisper White. So this is, the white is 3 3/3, sorry, by 5.5. So the matte is 3 7/8 by 5 5/8. Those are some pretty standard sizes for just a card that has 2 layers on the front, 2 layers on the inside. Whoops. And then I'm going to use the other words in here and stamp those in the Seaside Spray. Okay. I'm looking, there's no comments. You girls are being awfully quiet this morning. I guess it's Saturday. I know a lot of you are still working or have gone back to work. So it's your day off. And then we'll just put that on the inside. Okay, now the last thing I want to do is add some sequins to the front. Now the woven threads sequins, even if you don't like the stamp set or don't like the papers or whatever, you might want to have a look at the sequins because they are the 5 in colors. The collection, all of those are the 5 in colors. The current in colors, the ones that we've had for a year now. So those are really actually quite useful to have. So the easiest way to put on sequins is to take your glue, you could use your fine tip glue as well, and just put dots on your card. Like that. And then take your pick tool, the pick up end, and then just pick up the sequins like so. And I'm just going to I got 2 together there. Put them on how, whatever one I pick up is what I'm going to put on. I'm not going to think too much about it. Sometimes you can overthink these things. You can always overthink these things. But it's a good idea to have, they come in 3 sizes here, so it's a good idea to have all 3 sizes. Okay, I'm thinking about that one. I might do the darker. There we go. Okay, so that, I believe that's our card all finished. Now these woven thread sequins will be in the next book, even though the papers are going. So these are good ones to have if you love the current in colors. Now then the last thing I would suggest you do is just stamp your envelope, and I did a little stamp on the back as well. So there you go. There's a couple of samples, and I look forward to getting your new books out to you, hopefully sometime next week, but I can't promise anything in the current day and age. But if you have any questions or anything, of course, just leave them in the comments below or contact me. Happy to help anytime. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday, guys. I appreciate you so much. Bye-bye.